Welcome to Evolution in Controls, coming to you from our Farmers Branch, Texas location. I'm your host, Tim Wilson. Thank you for joining us. The manufacturers of mobile equipment, the OEMs, are constantly navigating through a maze of challenges. New demands from technology or new demands from users for better performance. The components that the OEMs use to build and control their machines are well understood, but at the same time, they are also changing. Hydraulics has been an essential element in mobile machinery from almost the very beginning. And if the mobile equipment OEMs must respond to these new demands, then the suppliers of hydraulic components must react along with the OEMs. A basic building block for any hydraulic system are the valves that are used to control the flow of the hydraulic oil. You can't have a hydraulic system without valves. But what happens when the valves become a challenge to integrate into a new machine design? How do you respond when the demand for simplicity meets the demand for improved performance? And if the engineering design goals are accomplished, you still need to build the machine. What impact do these changes have on the cost of manufacturing, on the resources, or on the service and support? Bosch Rexroth has launched a new series of mobile hydraulic valves that may be part of the answer. But is a new product offering simply enough? Is there more to be done in helping the OEMs meet their challenges? Here to talk with us today about how the Womack Group and this new product line can address these questions is Mr. Zack Reddick, North Texas Regional Sales Manager for Womack. Zack, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Let's start with what do you do here? How long have you been with Womack? How long have you been in the industry?
You bet. So I've been with Womack for 24 years. Total time spent in industry in the fluid power space has been 26 years. Today my role is a regional sales manager, and it's my job to support our sales team from a technical, commercial, and strategic standpoint.
So you've been here 24 out of 26 years.
Yes.
You started right out of college.
Almost. Just a few years out. My first job was with the manufacturer of pneumatic valve components and cylinders. So I worked for them in a direct sales role for a couple of years before finding my home here at Womack.
Okay. Now, you said regional sales, your title said regional sales manager. Do you have salespeople that report to you? How big is your team?
Yes, sir. So we have a 10-person team that I'm jointly responsible for supporting with another partner in crime here in North Texas, another fellow regional sales manager as well.
Okay. And you call on a range of customers throughout your territory, your salesperson's territory, correct?
That's right. That's right.
So we're here to talk about mobile hydraulic valves, and I want to start at the beginning. Is there a difference between valves used on mobile equipment and valves used on an industrial piece of machinery?
You know, that's a good question, and there certainly are. While at their core, their function is the same, simply to divert fluid flow, there is a difference between industrial and mobile valves. So in the industrial environment, space and weight isn't as much of a concern, where in the mobile environment it certainly is. So valves are designed to optimize and reduce the space and weight. And as a result, a lot of times they incorporate a lot of additional functions into the valve besides just a directional control valve. So you'll have load sense reliefs, maybe load checks, port reliefs.
So the valve is doing more than just directing changing the oil from port to port.
That's right. So it's a multifunctional valve, and what you end up with is a lot of control and power density in a small space.
So in an industrial piece of machinery, you'd have sandwich valves with different functions. You'd have a whole stack of them. What you're saying is all of those functions, like a relief and maybe a check or something, all of those are included into one valve module?
Right, or assembly. Yes, sir.
Assembly?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So those have been out for a long time. That's not new. That's been a characteristic of valves for the mobile industry. What is new? Rexroth has come out with this new series.
Right, so the new series of valve is their RM valve series. It's a medium-duty, mobile, pre-compensated sectional valve. The RM series have two frame sizes. You have the RM10, which is a 24 GPM valve section, and the RM15, which is a 40 GPM valve section.
What's new about it?
Well, what's new for us specifically is it's a building block, or Rexroth has built upon their current M4 series valve platform, which is a very powerful valve.
So the M4 is what has been out there and is what is currently being used.
That's correct. And it's what we call a fully optioned valve. It was designed with the mindset that we want to be able to utilize that valve to address almost all applications out there.
It can do anything and everything.
That's right. It's got a lot of different options, a lot of features, and which is great. makes for a very powerful valve.
It's not a problem, is it?
No, well, at times when you have applications that don't quite need all those options, it makes for maybe adding in a little extra cost that didn't need to be there. And so why we're excited about the RM series is that it was designed with a cost focus, right? And so instead of trying to be everything to everybody, it took the approach of, okay, what is 75 or 80% of the core mobile machine equipment needs, and let's design towards that.
So they reduced the functions or the range of functions that valve can do.
The range of options that were not used all the time, right? And so what that made for is a valve that we can still address 75, 80% of the market needs, but not as complex of a valve. And so that lended itself to a more cost-effective valve from a manufacturing and machining standpoint.
Does that make it smaller?
It does. Less complex certainly makes the valve smaller, which is important in the mobile environment for sure.
Less metal means less cost?
Yes, less cost, less weight, smaller size. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is on the screen behind us here, is that the new RM series?
It is, yes.
Now, it looks like some of the sections aren't exactly identical. Are they different function sections?
Right. So what's interesting about the RM and what's something that we feel we need to address market demands is a flexible and modular platform. So on one valve assembly, you can incorporate the RM10 valve sections, RM15, and also our existing M4 valve sections. So you can custom tailor a valve assembly to meet specific flow demands of each circuit.
So that's an assembly right there that we see on the screen. So you could put an M4 valve module
section. Yes, sir.
You could put an M4 section in that stack that we're looking at right there.
That's correct. That's correct. So what that does for you, it enables you to right size the valve for each function. Each function in the application, you can more right size it. So you could put, if you got a 20 GPM flow rate demand, you can use an RM10 24, right? If you needed a higher flow, let's say 30 GPM, you could use an RM15. So you can make sure to tailor each valve section to the flow demand of that function, and that will reduce the overall size of your valve footprint. So instead of you having to use a 40 GPM section when you only need 10 or so, you've got a lot of extra capacity that you don't need. So we're able to optimize it from a space and weight standpoint, and then it also has a performance benefit where if you're able to size a valve closer to the intended flow range and demand, you're going to have better controllability, resolution, and things like that.
So when you tell me that they've redesigned it for with an eye on cost, and they've reduced the range of options that it can do, what I hear is a reduction in performance. Did they sacrifice any of that? What do they sacrifice?
Absolutely not. Absolutely nothing in performance, right? Just in the options that are available. But when it comes to performance, this valve is actually a very high performing valve, and there's some unique things to it from a design standpoint that contribute to that.
So what does high performing mean? I mean, what do you mean by that?
High performing, to me, that means good controllability, right? Very linear control, low hysteresis, right? Very efficient, low pressure drop.
These valves are controlling functions on a piece of mobile equipment like speed or direction or maybe a boom or forks on a truck.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so improved performance talks about how those functions operate. Is that what that means?
That's correct. That's correct. And specifically the user interface and how precisely they're able to control those functions.
Okay, so what are some of the features that give us that better performance?
Sure. Well, one unique thing about this valve as compared to some other competitive designs is the spool design. So when you look at the cross section of the spool, it's got a reduced overall diameter, and it has about a 20% longer stroke length. And what that does for you is several things. One, it increases the control resolution of the valve. So if you're trying to proportionally or vary speed on a bucket lift or a boom or something like that, it increases the operator's ability to accurately feather that speed and control it. Right? And then that also leads into linearity of the valve. And so that means that, hey, its output is going to be very predictable and consistent with the input.
So if I'm the operator of the equipment, I can better gauge by the position of the handle that I'm using or the lever how the axis is going to operate.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's one of the key advantages is certainly controllability, control resolution. And then also a byproduct of that in the spool design is very low leakage. That, and combined with tight manufacturing tolerances, we have a very low leakage spool. So that lends itself to good load holding characteristics.
Leakage meaning that if the oil is leaking, the load is going to droop or
Right.
or shift or sag or.
That's right. That's correct. That's correct.
Does low leakage also affect heat generation?
It does. It does, but usually not so much in a static condition. But what does affect heat would be pressure drop through the valve.
All right.
And that's another design concept here that Bosch Rexroth has looked to optimize, is they really tried to reduce the overall pressure drop through the valve. It's about, when you look at some competitive designs, it's as much as 50% less. And what that translates to is less heat, more efficiency, less power loss through the valve, and you actually have more pressure to do work in your application.
Well, so there's a whole range that Bosch Rexroth has brought out, the RM series. Does the OEM know enough to just pick the right valves? What role do we play? You're sales guys. You've got a 10-person
Sure.
sales team. What role are they playing in this?
Sure.
Any?
Absolutely. That's a very fair question. So our role, for one, is we want to work closely with the equipment manufacturers. We want to understand the application. We want to be a part of that solution. We want to help them specify the valves, right? We want to be an extension of their engineering team. And that's one thing that we pride ourselves in. We have the tools, once we understand the application, the performance demands, to quickly configure this valve that we're talking about here. And once we configure that valve, unique part number will be developed, unique circuit schematic for that valve will be developed.
So this would have 20 part numbers or one part number? Or?
One overall assembly part number to order by, yes sir. And then in conjunction with that, we'd be able to deliver the circuit, right, the hydraulic circuit, as well as a 2D and a 3D drawing package for machine documentation and design work as well.
Because they need to place that in the machine someplace.
That's right.
They need a 3D.
That's right. That's right. So that's one big role our sales team plays. As a distributor, a second role we play is that we understand we want to be able to serve our markets locally and quickly. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 valve assembly facilities established, one in Farmers Branch, which is in the greater Dallas area.
Where we are.
That's correct. And one in Auburn Hills, Michigan.
Okay.
So we have, at those locations, we have factory-trained technicians with dedicated assembly cells and test cells.
So they're actually putting this together is what
That's
you're saying.
right. They'll take a look at the configuration and take the bill of materials and the individual valve sections, components, load sense reliefs, port reliefs, and they will assemble the unit complete and test it and be able to deliver it to the customer. And then in conjunction with that, a key component of that is inventory, right? So we've also made a significant investment in inventory at those local levels, so we have product on hand to deliver quickly to the market demands.
So we help the customer specify the products, we help them design it in, we help them build it, or we build it for ourselves, we ship it, we've got one part number for it. It's a new product, it's new. What do you see the future looking like in 5 years from now?
Yeah, sure. So I see in the immediate future that we've brought to market a very positive, solid option for machine builders for equipment control when you talk about high performance, flexibility, and still being a very cost-effective solution. So I see that in the near term. Long term, in terms of down the road, 2, 3, 4 years, I see Bosch Rexroth taking this same design approach, being cost-focused, high performance, modular, and flexible, but applying that to a post-compensated control valve, which we call a flow sharing valve, which has some unique positive features and benefits in itself. So I feel us taking from the pre-pressure compensated valve to a post-compensated valve solution.
It's not going to be something in the RM family, but it's going to be something like the RM family.
Yes, sir.
Post-compensated.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we're out of time, but maybe when they come out with that new product here in the next couple of years, you'll come back and join us. And maybe we spend some time looking at the assembly cells that we have either here in Farmers Branch or up in Auburn Hills. Would you be open to that?
You bet. I'd enjoy the opportunity.
All right. Zach, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
To learn more about the Womack Group and their systems and solutions, visit womacmachine.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Evolution and Controls on whatever platform you use for podcasts or on YouTube for a video version so you can be updated when we release new episodes. Thank you again for joining us today. I'm Tim Wilson, and remember, keep moving.